Section B of the European Convention on Human Rights takes us through what I would describe as the nuts and bolts. And for any of you who may be in a position of advising a person who considers that their human rights under the European Convention has been violated, this is an important aspect of the Convention that you have to know, because it covers the locus standi of both states and individuals. However, initially, the structure of the court is examined, how the court is made up, from its original structure to what it looks like today, because there have been steps to try and expedite the procedures, or at least streamline them, as the court has become increasingly utilized and employed. Once we look at that and the advent of Protocol 14, which has introduced some amendments, then we look at the actual procedure before the court, both from the perspective of the applicant being a state and also from the perspective of the individual. Now, what is necessary? What does an individual have to allege before a case can be taken to the European Court? One of the most important concepts that has to be exhausted is domestic remedies. In other words, an individual has got to demonstrate that he or she has sought redress within the state legal system, the domestic legal system of the state against whom the individual is alleging a complaint and a violation of the human rights. Other criteria that have to be satisfied: there has to be a victim. Also, an application cannot be anonymous, and one has to identify the particular right contained in the convention that one feels has been breached. If these criteria are then satisfied to allow admissibility, then we look at the next stage, the stage before the court, and the procedure. And the procedure is stated and set out, but we also have to take into account that there is always the hope that there will be friendly settlement, because particularly when you're dealing with human rights, there is an emphasis on friendly settlement rather than trying to characterize the state as guilty. If the case does proceed before the court, then we look at that procedure, we look at what can be obtained, namely just satisfaction, and also what is the effect of a judgment from the court. Who is responsible for implementing and monitoring and seeing whether or not the state concerned has complied with the court's finding, because it's the state that has been the alleged offender that is then required to comply with the findings of the court. So Section B is very much the nuts and bolts, but it shouldn't be seen as being just too technical or dry, because before you can, for example, facilitate your clients, you have to know what it is and the stages that they would have to go through in order to take a case, or indeed whether they are eligible to take a case to the European Court of Human Rights.